Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Andrew and Steemit CEO Ned Scott.
Hello, can you hear me in the back row? Can I get a thumbs up? Cool. I'm Andrew McMillen. I am a journalist from Australia, and I'm here to speak with Ned Scott, CEO of Steemit Incorporated. To begin, Ned, I wanted to ask if you could take us back a few years. You were sitting, I believe, at the dining room table with your father, and you read an article on Yahoo Finance that mentioned Bitcoin, and you're interested in this topic, and you turned to him and you asked him what he thought of it. And what did your father say?
Oh yeah, I remember that. It was the very first moment I had discovered Bitcoin. It was actually the computer. There was a little computer in the kitchen. And I was just browsing the article, and I turned over my shoulder, and my dad was there, and I said, "Dad, what do you think of this? Some sort of digital money, it's becoming really valuable, people are speculating on it." And he goes, "Look, Ned, I don't pay attention to the fads. Sounds like a fad. Forget about it." And 3 years later, he's telling me, the Bitcoin price is going up every week or so.
And your father himself is a long-term Wall Street trader and banker, right?
Yeah, he's always been on Wall Street, a finance guy. And I think growing up, with that in the household, I was always aware of the financial system, but I was never very attracted to it in its current form. And as I got deeper and deeper into Bitcoin, I found my love for finance start to blossom, but I loved that it was going to be a new type of finance, not the finance I had grown up thinking that was very rigid and had to occur on Wall Street and that sort of thing.
A lot of the talk around cryptocurrency back then, and even now I suppose, was about the monetary value, the dollars associated with currency. Was that part of the initial attraction for you? Did you see something more at that time?
Yeah, when I really started to dive into it, 2013 was also just after I'd gotten out of school, and I had been studying psychology and economics. So you can see sort of through that lens, I was super interested in sort of behavior and asking, why do people do things? Why do they do it the way they do? And Bitcoin, as I got deeper into it, became another lens for seeing those types of things, for examining behaviors. And you saw this system of incentives that was propagating a network that was creating a currency. So there was incented behavior, and I thought that was fascinating. And I think that's a big reason I came back to it. I wanted to figure out what else could we incent? What else would these systems mean for behaviors of all of us across the world?
From that early point, I think throughout 2013 and onwards, you were involved with Bitcoin meetups and traveling into New York City to attend and meet people face to face to talk about this whole ecosystem. And as anyone in this room will probably attest, quite a lot of research is required at first to get your head around understanding how cryptocurrency works and its functions in the world. Did you enjoy that process of self-education?
That process was hard, and it was very rewarding. And I think that it quickly changed my life because it became my entire focus. Going to meetups, finding people to talk to who had similar interests. That was the only thing I wanted to pursue. Finding people who could teach me more about the technology, spending all my other time on forums, even while I was at work, just digesting as much of this information as I possibly could. And so I was getting a lot of reward from that, but it did become sort of my singular focus, and other things in my life took a back seat, especially as I tried to talk about these things with family and friends who I didn't feel that they were understanding what I was interested in and why it was so interesting to me. So, for a while, yeah, I felt pretty alone, and just in the last maybe year and a half, I'd say, since sort of Steemit has begun to have more and more success, have people sort of become more open-minded that maybe were closed-minded 3 years ago, and now they really want to have these conversations with me.
To bring it closer to the present, was Steemit designed, if maybe in part, as a way to bridge the gap between that huge amount of self-research and knowledge that was required to understand it a few years ago? Was Steemit designed to bridge the gap between those heavily well-read people and the mass market who may not have the time or inclination to read about it?
Absolutely. Steemit is meant to be a bridge for the regular person who maybe probably isn't in a position in their lives to spend 16 hours a day thinking about these technologies and thinking about everything that's occurring in the back end of everything. They want to think about what's in front of them, what they can utilize today, where the opportunities are for them today. And so Steemit is very good at bringing people in just to think more about things on the surface, and then once they get incentives, they can think more about the things that are deeper. But it helps everything become a gradual process, and I do think that is very important for the future of cryptocurrency. The Bitcoin model of going out and telling people, this is a great currency system, 21 million coins, deflationary, things like that, I think is great, but it's also very hard to grasp for a lot of people, and Steemit is a much softer onboarding experience.
This is a conversation between Ned and myself. If you guys have questions for him at any point, please raise your hand and we'll get a microphone to you. I'll just try to keep an eye out for you. Ned, if cryptocurrency can be thought of as a religion, perhaps you buy this premise, perhaps you don't, what is your intentions for enrolling more believers in cryptocurrency?
Sure. So I do think there are some religions in the space, and my personal feeling is that the more religious attitudes tend to form around the less pragmatic technologies, where the technologies are less pragmatic but maybe have network effects because they were early or first. Religion sort of attaches itself to that so that people become more comfortable going out and selling the merits of a certain system. So take, for instance, Bitcoin. Bitcoin has an amazing network effect that I find hugely valuable. But when we look at the technology in certain aspects and compare it to Steem, we see some disadvantages. We see that Bitcoin may take a long time when we're talking about transfers of tokens across the world. It can take sometimes up to an hour to have enough confirmations to feel like you've actually received Bitcoin or sent it. With Steem, it's almost instantaneous. It takes about a second and a half. But yet, that doesn't deter people in the Bitcoin camp from going out and, preaching to the masses that they need to go out and get Bitcoin. So I think for Steemians, we have the, I'll say, luxury of being able to be more pragmatic. We have a system here where the technology doesn't hold us back. And so we get to move forward on a more utilitarian basis. We get to see people show up and get real utility and have real opportunity from this technology, and that's what's drawing people to it. Not so much a religion around you need to get into this ecosystem because of X, Y, and Z ideologies, but you might get into it because of X, Y, and Z opportunities that are here at your fingertips today. Show up, begin blogging, become a community member, you start creating start writing open source software and getting rewarded for that. There are these nuances to the Steem system that help people join the community so much more easily that we just don't need that religion.
Sticking with that idea of religion, have you had any religious experiences along your journey so far? Any that come to mind?
Ooh, yeah. Okay, well, this is going to get pretty personal. I did have a pretty serious one recently that I probably shouldn't talk about. But let's just say there were some substances involved, and then there was this voice coming from the corner of the room. This is like I should never have brought this up, but yeah, there have been some religious experiences along the way, and I think that's important because it helps open your eyes, and you need to be. I need to be challenging myself all the time, and I think everyone in the community should be challenging themselves to figure out, what are the pragmatic technologies here? Where are the roadblocks? Let's be honest with ourselves and move forward. And so, religious moments for me are about overcoming the religious moments and being more pragmatic and identifying the religion and getting it out of our way and moving forward.
Do you have people in your life or in your business who keep you in check in that regard? Like, if you're, acting out in a certain way or getting a bit too grandiose, do you have people who bring you back down to earth?
Yeah, I think that, there are definitely people on the Steemit team who, really are very critical of new ideas and that sort of thing. Take, for instance, the smart media tokens. Smart Media Tokens is a culmination of ideas that have been percolating with me since the beginning of last year. As Steem started to have success, lots of other people began to come to me and say, hey, how can I work on this with you or replicate this system and do it similarly? And so I had put a lot of thought into it, and then finally we get to the moment this year where I'm ready to put much more of my energy into it to get it released. And still, I had some challenges where I have to convince people that we can build this system, we can do it in a pragmatic and effective way that will take our vision and bring us forward. And so yeah, there's some convincing that goes along with that. And I've had other ideas that I brought to the table that get criticized, and then I realize, yeah, maybe that's not a great idea, and we shouldn't do that. But so that's a good thing. You need to have checks and balances. You can't, especially in a community system. That's, I'd say, the next layer of checks and balances with smart media tokens. Even that's something we present to the community as a sort of proposal. This is technology we want to build. We're proposing it to the community, and I think that anyone proposing ideas has that same sort of checks and balances system where they need to have community approval. But luckily with smart media tokens, it seems like the community is behind the idea a little bit. I don't know, are you guys behind the smart media tokens idea? Cool.
With smart media tokens, how do you see that plugging into existing media organizations, for example, if we could use that as a hypothetical example?
That's a great question. And with existing organizations, we can talk about some of the challenges they may face in shifting their business, adding some new element to their business, or pivoting completely. There are challenges there. And then we can also talk about conceptually, how they actually would approach an implementation. Maybe I'll start there, because I do feel that ultimately smart media tokens becomes a very turnkey, very easy to accomplish implementation. Through a few tools, some which exist today and some which are being built. But for instance, an interface to the Steem blockchain that looks a lot like the Discuss comments widget. Has everyone here seen Discuss on some blog they've stumbled on the internet, right? So imagine that you have a Discuss-like widget that's plugged into the Steem blockchain. If anyone here has ever built a WordPress blog, you also know that it's very easy to swap out your comments widget, right? So a tool like that would allow every blogger who's got an existing domain, an existing publishing business, or an existing blog, simply to swap out their comments widget, and then there'd be moderator tools that would allow them hit the button and get your token launched. And then there's a token running, and it looks a lot like the comments overlay to steemit.com or busy.org or something like that.
With that example, I can see the perhaps objection that a media organization would have, which would be, how do we moderate comments on a blockchain which is immutable and uncensorable?
The answer is you do and you don't. On your domain, on your properties, on your websites, you have, as the application owner and operator, you have all the rights in the world to curate that interface and moderate comments, hide comments, move spam out of the way. And you should do that, because ultimately you're trying to provide an experience to your readers that is good for your business, good for your brand, and maybe all those spam comments aren't a good thing for the brand, right? But at the same time, anything that goes into the blockchain stays on the blockchain. But these are two separate layers of technology. So the person running the publishing site or the blog has all the power in the world to moderate with the same tools and experience they do today with their current comments widget. But there is also now this sort of permanent record in the back end that keeps content and speech alive into perpetuity. And I think that there's value to having both. You get a curated experience and you have a public record of speech. And I think that there's a big value add in having speech protected into forever.
I think everyone in this room would be on board with that, because they already have Steemit accounts and they would therefore be earning Steem on their comments on major news organizations, let's say. How do you see yourself convincing such organizations to get on board? What's your, roadmap for pitching to them or getting them to say, all right, we'll give it a go?
Yeah, there's a few key things there, but what I've found in my experience is that they're very open to it. smart media tokens represents an opportunity for them that is completely additive to the things they're doing today. It's not an opportunity that threatens any of their existing business models. A token is something they overlay to what they're already doing with advertising or repackaging data and selling it. What tokens do is they augment these things. They potentially bring in more users, which could amplify their other revenue models and that sort of thing. So they're very open-minded to it. And beyond that, there's a lot of blockchain buzz out there. And it's kind of easy to get the attention of these organizations today and say, hey, you really need to be looking at this. There's a solution for you, and it's turnkey, and potentially it'll be profitable for you. So people are interested from a curiosity standpoint, and I think from a business standpoint, it's a very practical and, like I said with the comments widget, it seems like an easy implementation. So it's a very practical pitch for them.
That's just one example of smart media tokens being used. Are there other use cases that you would like to mention or elaborate on?
Absolutely. I think it's great to talk about examples for smart media tokens in the context of existing publishers and all that, because it really sort of captures the imagination, where you can take something existing that you're very familiar with, whether it's the New York Times, Washington Post, rollingstone.com, and then adding some new technology to it. But ultimately, there's lots of different structures of content websites. Take, for instance, Steemit or Reddit, where you have a more global interface covering much more content, different varieties of content. These types of websites can probably harness smart media tokens in even more ways and present even more smart media tokens to their audience that maybe capture, different types of communities that host different types of content or interests. And ultimately, I see so many tokens appearing on these sort of global websites, like Steemit inside Steemit communities or in Reddit and Reddit subreddits, that we'll start to see tokens really represent people's personalities and their interests. And ultimately, when you go to look at someone's profile and you see all the tokens they hold, you'll get a pretty interesting idea of what they're interested in and what they've been focusing their time on and what communities they've been contributing to. And ultimately, I see this leading to a world where tokens are not just sort of exchange of value, but are information that we'll want to provide to each other. We'll be able to express who we are through these tokens.
Maybe hard to answer, but do you have a launch date in mind or a rough idea of when smart media tokens will go live?
In my pocket right now, I have my cell phone, and in my cell phone I have an application. It's the Slack application. In Slack is where the Steemit developers and the engineering team and everybody else is doing all their updates, and we're seeing all the commits to the GitHub repo. And I can tell you that there's a lot of action around the smart media tokens repository right now. And it's very exciting, and we're going to have a testnet up soon this year, and then we will get smart media tokens launched early next year.
You, Ned, are the public face of a cryptocurrency movement. What are the pros and cons of that role, being the public face of a currency and a platform that hundreds of thousands of people use regularly?
I don't think about it that much. It's great. It allows me to meet so many incredible people with diverse talents and interests. It allows me to funnel in information and allows me to grow from that. And I couldn't be more appreciative of that as an opportunity. And it comes with responsibility too, as a leader. And I appreciate that too, because I believe that we can change the world with this technology, and I'm incredibly grateful that other people are supporting us and themselves and all of us in that vision. It's really special to be in a position like this.
That's a diplomatic answer. Have you had any strange or unexpected interactions with the fans over the last 2 years?
Yeah. You know, yeah, I've met some great people. You do become a sort of target, I will say. So I don't know if you guys remember, but we had, like, there was a hacking incident last year, you know, that sort of thing. So you become a sort of target, you know, for some malicious actors and that sort of thing. And you respond accordingly, you know, the security procedures that we take, you know, inside the company and, you know, inside the website and all that, you know, we think about these procedures all the time. We're all constantly improving them and that sort of thing. So there's that aspect, and then, you know, yeah, I've had some pretty strange conversations with people too, but, you know, incredible conversations on the whole, and yeah.
Well, I'll give you a direct example that I heard from someone last night. At the last SteemFest in Amsterdam, I believe several people came up to you and gave you artworks of your face that they had drawn themselves. And what was your reaction to that?
And I still have those artworks in my bedside table. So
just a big pile of Ned faces.
Yep, I have a whole collection. I hold on to them dearly.
For anyone in the crowd with a picture of Ned, this is your chance after to come and give it to him so you can add it to the pile, of course. No comment. To turn to financial matters, your account on Steemit has an estimated value of $3.5 million. What does that amount mean to you?
It means opportunity. It means that there's been growth. And yeah, I'm excited to see it be worth a lot more.
Sorry, in the first row. Could we get a mic to the first row? Perhaps I'll give you my mic. If you have questions, please make them short and sharp. And if you waffle on, I will take the mic back.
Sorry, what, me in general? Okay. You just mentioned about the financials there. What does your father think about Steem in terms of, like, you said he was from the financial Wall Street. And, do you have any, I mean, I'd love to know that table-side conversation. Do you have that regularly with him? Is that something that you're willing to talk about?
Since that moment in time, we've had some very in-depth discussions about the implications of the technology and what it could mean for the financial industry, what it could mean for governments, what it could mean for all of us regular people across the world, content creators, and all that. So yeah, we've you know, walked the entire field since then, and I'd say he's a convert. You know, he's definitely into it.
What would happen if, hypothetically, you were to cash out your entire Steemit balance and turn it into American dollars? What would that do to the currency?
The currency, I think, would be fine. And yeah, but then I wouldn't have, like, the same, you know, incentive to keep doing everything. So, I mean, that's not really, yeah, it's not my intention, I don't think. Yeah.
Many people have noticed, I'll come to you in a moment, many people have noticed that you've chosen not to participate in Steemit so much. You don't vote, you don't re-Steem very often, and you comment a bit. Is that a conscious choice, and what's the thinking behind that?
Yeah, the term for that is lurking. I'm a lurker. I see everything, and I also know every one of you.
No, seriously, why don't you vote? Like, what's the thinking behind not voting? Is that to kind of remain impartial or to not influence things?
I think it's to remain impartial. So I can see things more clearly, and, you know, as things are going on, I can just evaluate it, you know, on an even keel. But, you know, I'm watching it and just not trying to control it myself. I think if there's going to be improvements to the platform, I shouldn't be trying to, and you know, other people who are really close to the development shouldn't be trying to control it. You know, by being a part of it, we should be trying to build a platform that, you know, becomes great on its, you know, on its own merit, with features and solutions that are built for the long run. Not, you know, we don't want to be hammering away at every single problem. You know, we want to build a foundation that lends itself to, you know, great discussion and success, you know, without day-to-day sort of interference.
Roland, is there a separate microphone for the audience questions?
I think what really drew me to Steemit was how incredible the potential is for social change. When you were in the development process of Steemit, was that your intention?
Our intention was to build something that would get traction in some sort of way, and there were a lot of great reasons to see it succeed. And I think everyone who really gets into cryptocurrency the way we have does see the potential for social change. Ultimately, I see cryptocurrency changing the way we interact with everyone and everything, no matter what type of organization it is, if it's a government or if it's individuals. And I was telling Andrew earlier, I was in the shower this morning and I was trying to encapsulate a few words that I thought would describe my view on blockchain now, and I'm starting to believe that I'm a post-blockchain nihilist.
Maybe you're the world's first post-blockchain nihilist.
So what I think that means is that years from now, when cryptocurrency and blockchain has become far more ubiquitous, we will be able to leverage these tools in ways that are very libertarian and very healthy, that have empowered the individuals. And I believe by empowering all of us as individuals, we will have a great seismic change in society that is very healthy. So yes, I do believe this will bring great social change.
There's a question over here. I'll ask one while the microphone gets to you, Roland. Stop looking at your phone. Ned, what occupies more of your time, platform or the currency? Or do you see them as interlinked?
Say that one more time.
What occupies more of your time day to day, Steem or Steemit?
Great question. Yeah, it's 50-50, okay? No, I've always been a very deep blockchain guy. When I first got into blockchain, there was no Steemit-like application to look at and really care about. There was Bitcoin and the other, copycats of Bitcoin and that sort of thing. And you could only sort of think about it in this very intangible way. You can only think about the numbers running in the background and the algorithms in the background. And that has a sort of symmetry and a beauty to me that I find fascinating and I do think about all the time. And social media applications were more new for me, I think, when we started, and it was a way to express the beauty of the blockchain. And now, as we've grown, I've become more and more of a social media guy, and it pretty much, I love both, and I split my time.
Question?
Hello. Okay. Just a couple of questions, if I may.
No, one question. I'll allow one question. Make it your best question.
Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, I'll just do whatever I want anyway. Firstly, it feels like there's an elephant in the room of, trying to offer what I understood, and I have, what I understood by Steemit is part of it is to deal with this whole structural, hierarchy, and how, having this whole situation we've got at the moment where the parasitic class, as I call them, have, all the power, and yet in Steemit it seems that the people with the most steam have the most power, and the huge possible problems that could cause, and is causing at the moment. I don't know to what extent it is, but I know it's definitely happening. There's abuse, and also sort of tying into the fact that you've got 3 million Steem just sitting there, and there's another 60 million Steem in Steemit Inc. just sitting there when it could be used to help sort of market the product, which brings me on to the second part of the question.
What's the question, please?
Right? Which is, why isn't there, for example, so the first part is there's an elephant in this room. Can you just relate to the problem of having people with more money having more power, and what the possible problems that might, and what your solutions are to it? And also, Why are there not? I saw two amazing films, one particularly absolutely unbelievable film.
No, stop. Let's stop
Yesterday,
talking.
one second.
Answer the first
I
part of
saw-
the question.
So the
Sorry,
answer,
okay.
the answer to the first question is absolutely. I can relate to the feeling of the problem, and I also have to say that, you know, the idea that it's a problem is a frame. And there are definitely benefits in having stake-weighted systems where not everyone has the same amount, you know. It's just kind of the nature of the world that, you know, people attain what they work for, what they build, what they're early for, you know, that sort of thing. But ultimately, you know, we do have a system where fairness is something that contributes to good feelings, and I empathize with that, and I also have taken that and worked it into different designs for some of the future technologies, like with smart media tokens. There's been some discussion, and I included a discussion section in the Smart Media Token white paper on oracles and how we can use oracles and maybe a dual oracle system that you sort of have a checks and balances balancing act between an oracle that publishes identities and an oracle that publishes which identities aren't legitimate. And you can use that to create a very democratic style voting system where everyone shows up and has the same potential earning power on an SMT and the same voting power on an SMT on any given day. It would create a very different dynamic where, you know, it's one account, one vote, and that sort of thing. It would also, the byproduct would be more wisdom of the crowd infused into that token economy. So, you know, I don't think that we're creating an absolute solution that results in communism by any means. I think that we're creating solutions that are libertarian and that sort of thing, and then opt-in. So I think we need to reframe the problem a little bit if we were going to really dig into this question any further.
Just one
In
little
the
tiny
front
thing
row.
is why I saw an amazing film earlier on today. That it was just that trailer that you guys financed, and I was just wondering how come there's not a Steemit film that's been made, you know, a promotional video that's that kind of quality.
Can you ask a marketing question or something? Yeah.
Okay. Getting over that. Front row, please.
I have a very serious question. Who is your hairdresser?
Well, who is? For a long time, it was my mother. Well, I was going to ask you.
Yes.
My turn?
Yes, yes.
I really liked the evil plan for world domination that was published by Dan. I suppose you also agree to it. And there, I really like this several step approach. The first step is to make it easy to people to get the currency. But the second step, to make it useful, so you can pay with it. And Steem has a potential. I'm still waiting for that. When does it come? When can I pay with Steem everywhere? Why do you focus on SMT rather than making Steem useful as a currency? I think that's a big
I think we
gap.
should double back and we should think about what creates value in currency systems. And we look at Bitcoin, and I'll turn the question back to you. Is Bitcoin, you know, more valuable as a payment system or as a store of value? And I would argue that it's more valuable as a store of value. And these currencies in their infancy are really sort of vehicles for becoming big and then over time stabilizing and becoming better currencies. They don't act as great payment currencies in the beginning. It's a bit of a cart before the horse situation to say that these currencies are great for payments while there's incredible instability in their value. When that was published, the plan also alluded to the idea that the Steem-backed dollar was actually the gateway for payments. And what we've seen also is that these pegged instruments, these derivatives, are also not very effective at holding value. And so really my plan for seeing payments become ubiquitous in the cryptocurrency world is first to make them very large and see lots and lots of the world's value come into these systems that are more free. And I see that happening in a number of ways. It's going to happen from us being interested in these systems. Eventually, it's going to happen from governments being interested in these systems. Imagine Russia or China somehow declaring that, you know, that they're interested in Bitcoin and they're buying Bitcoin or they're buying Steem. These things will get large very fast. because the governments will start competing against each other and become a bit of an arms race. And then next thing you know, everyone's in on these things, and there's lots and lots of value. And the biggest ones will be the most stable. And once you have stability, it's far easier to do payments.
There's a question at the back. We'll take a microphone to you. I will ask you now, Ned. You've had a lot of conversations over the last 2 years with people who don't really understand Bitcoin or blockchain or Steem or any of that. What have you learned about how to frame those discussions for people and tell it to them succinctly and directly?
Yeah, and brings me back, to the beginning of Steem and Steemit, and I was going around pitching a lot of people in New York, where I was at the time, and in different places. And you used to always get that question, which is, where does the value come from? And in the beginning, I probably stumbled a little bit, and finally I started to find answers that would help people grasp the concepts quickly and intuitively. And one of those, anecdotally, I'll say, is that describing currency rewards in a system like Steem as a sort of point system allows people to imagine it very quickly. You can relate it to the karma points on Reddit or similar systems. And then you just say, it's just like that, but the points happen to have value, because simultaneously to them being distributed on these sites, they're also being traded. And when there's trading going on, there's buyers and sellers. A buy and a sell creates a price, and then everyone else who's just earning points knows what the price of their points is, and they can equate that to some sort of value.
Did we get that microphone to the man down the back? Oh, there's a guy here. Can we get a microphone down the back, someone? Okay, yes, you.
Hi, Ned. Regards to Steem Wales, having enough eyes to spot all the valuable contributions to the project of Steem and Steemit. Obviously, the solution to that is responsible delegation of Steem. With yourself having a decent balance of Steem as well, I was wondering how you're planning to delegate that. Have you got maybe a transparent evaluation process that people can apply for delegated Steem with yourself in order to get the Steem out so that more eyes can be on the platform to spot where the value is?
Yeah, I think delegations are super interesting. We've seen lots of communities rally around them, and they've got different nicknames. There's the OCD group and whoever else, and I think it's super interesting, and I think we'll continue to see more and more community efforts rally around that. And I think with smart media tokens, we're going to see a whole nother layer to that. We're going to see it happen in many, many more currencies that represent many, many more ideas. So over the long run, I see it being a really cool thing. There is some, financial structuring around that too. I think people are renting delegations and things like that. I think it's very interesting to see markets form around these things and see what happens. Ultimately, my goal is to lay the foundation for systems that have incentives for people to show up and find opportunity. And through these opportunities, we see growth. And we have not succeeded if we're not seeing growth. And the way we can have more growth is by providing more incentives and opportunities. So with smart media tokens and things like delegations, I think it's really interesting what we're seeing from that.
Down the back.
Hey, Ned. So my question is regarding the stake of the Steemit accounts. So currently, Steemit holds about 30% of total Steem supply. My question for you is, are there any strategies that Steemit's considering to potentially use that stake as a bargaining chip to approach existing social media sites and potentially buy in their user base and or fund community initiatives? Because at the end of the day, blockchain-based peer-to-peer distributed networks are more powerful if the stake is more widely distributed.
Yeah, so the stake that is in that account is owned by the company, and it's used to do company activities, whether that's marketing or engineering or anything like that, or partnerships, as you mentioned. So in short, yeah, the answer is yes.
Cool, thanks. Do you want to fund our faucet?
Yeah, talk to me after.
Thanks.
Here in the second row.
Hey, Ned. One of the features coming up that I'm most excited about is communities. And we haven't heard a lot about them during the SteemFest, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your vision for what the implication of this development might mean for the Steem ecosystem.
Yeah, so communities are really exciting, and there's a couple guys who have been working hours on end to push out the back-end tools that are going to support it, and are now pivoting over to working on basically the front-end infrastructure for it. And it's worth noting that communities are much more of an application layer feature than a blockchain layer feature, so they're being shipped into Steemit.com. And I think it's going to be super exciting for Steemit.com. It's going to help people organize. It's going to help sift the content so that really high quality content rises to the top. We're going to see more sort of niche moderation and that sort of thing. And we'll see people be able to find their people, find the content that they want to find more easily. And ultimately, I think that high quality content can be a serious driver of interest in users and that sort of thing. And so I'm super excited about communities, and then potentially it's something that we integrate smart media tokens into at some point too. But I think communities as a standalone are going to come first.
Up the back.
Yeah. My question is actually related to the one from Brandon right now. The main focus is on smart media tokens right now, but if you were able to define a vision for Steem, overall Steem for 2018, like something you would like to announce at SteemFest #3, what would that be?
Oh yeah, like, I don't know, a few million users or something would be pretty cool. But yeah, I think that the tagline vision for me going forward is to tokenize the internet, because I do feel that tokens and smart media tokens in particular represent a potential seismic shift in their ability to provide incentives that give everyone opportunities to be a part of this new and freer ecosystem. So 2018, if we were doing a SteemFest at the end of the year, I hope that we're looking back on some seriously awesome accomplishments from Steem's success in terms of the number of tokens that have come out. And then also I want to be talking about Steemit.com and the user growth we've had, how we're able to break down barriers like, for instance, behind the scenes now, one of our biggest priorities is to overhaul the sign-up process. And I think that it's not totally clear to everyone maybe that the sign-up process of Steemit is very different, maybe you do know, than other social media sites that are very mainstream like Twitter and that sort of thing where you can sign up instantly. The challenge with these blockchain-based social media systems is the cost to create accounts. And what that leads to is an inability for people to just grab an account off the bat and start running with it. Someone has to provide value to create that account to protect the blockchain in terms of scalability and protect the namespace. So for 2018, I want to be able to look back and say we've broken all these bottlenecks, and there was at this point nothing in the way of awesome growth, and then we hit awesome growth. And now here we are, and now here's the growth strategy for 2019 that's even larger than we could have expected.
Third row, just here.
Yes, Pablo speaking, hi. Today is the day of the SMTs, so another question. Do you think that it may be possible that the value of the Steem token will decrease when we introduce smart media token? At the end, we are buying smart SMTs with Steem. Could be that a risk?
I have no idea what's going to happen with the value of the token. I do believe in examining the economics and the value flows between tokens, and I've done quite a bit of work to map out how the value may flow through Steem because of the existence of smart media tokens. But as for any specific predictions, I don't have any of those right now.
Just here.
Hello. I have a question. I think recently on the platform, votes buying become some kind of issue. It becomes very popular among certain people. And for other people, this becomes very weird that there are people which can just buy votes and it's everything okay about that. In my opinion, this just very quickly, this is what free market did, because we do not have an efficient solution to, or people do not have efficient solution to promote legitimately their own posts. Do you perceive this as a problem? Do you think Steemit will address this issue in somehow anyway? And what do you think about votes buying?
What do I think about vote buying? I've never participated in it, so I don't have firsthand experience. But it's one of these things that has appeared because we are playing with an open economic system. And some people are making trades because they can each become better off by doing the transaction. So what do I think about it? I think that it's a super interesting phenomenon that's going on.
Okay, I will give you a question. Then we have one in the front row. Hypothetical, if you were to be looking Satoshi Nakamoto in the eye and meeting him or her or them for the first time, and you had one question, what would you like to ask them?
I would first ask them their names. I think with the Satoshi saga, there has been a lot of research and there have been a lot of articles that have come out, and even people who have come out and said, hey, I'm Satoshi, or people are saying, these people might be Satoshi. And I've read all these articles. And I think that somewhere in that pile of literature, there are some correct answers, or some close to correct answers. And so for me, if I could find out their names, it would really complete the story for me, because I've done a lot of research on the backgrounds of these people, I think.
Yes, front row.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot, or throughout SteemFest you mentioned a lot that Steem is the fastest blockchain and that it has no transactions, and you also mentioned that today, that it beats Bitcoin or solves some issues with Bitcoin. And also when I look at some of the ideas I have myself for SMTs, I would consider none of them to be social media applications. Do you think there will come a point where you don't really talk about Steem as a social media only blockchain? And also, do you think that when we continuously speak about it as a social media blockchain, that we limit people's understanding of what it can do, and that sort of harms the interest in it?
I think when we describe the platform, we do want to capture a very clear vision, but also a very also a vision that's not capped or limited, like you've pointed out. And there are tons of financial applications too, and I don't think we've gone into it in great detail here, but alongside SMTs that are supporting social media applications, there's also the potential to use tokens in more traditional financial means, whether it's pegging a token to a fiat currency or to some commodity or some sort of thing, or setting up businesses to operate gateways between fiat and the token world. These more financial businesses, and maybe that wasn't what you're referring to, but those, in my estimation, are going to be incredibly important too. So yeah, I'm curious what your other ideas have been.
Where does, we'll come to you after this one, where does cryptocurrency fit into your daily or weekly life? Is it something that you use to buy things, or are you more of a holder?
Yeah, I'm much more of a holder. And in my experience running this company, Steemit, however, there have been some moments where, cryptocurrency as a currency, as a means of paying people, has been super valuable. And it's this one instance where we're paying overseas contractors. It's just far easier to send cryptocurrency from the US to Europe or the US to Asia than it is to link up the bank accounts. If the contractor doesn't have a US bank account, it can be pretty tough. And beyond that, it can be tough just to have banking in a company that's focused on cryptocurrency. There are a lot of vendors out there who maybe won't want to do business with us or other cryptocurrency companies. So in places where there's friction in payments, I think cryptocurrencies really do show their value, but it's not in all of my everyday payment situations that it provides more convenience, I think. So for me, it's much more about a store of value right now, and seeing the potential that other people see in these currencies as a store of value, and understanding, how big they can become. And so I hold them for that reason.
Yes, over here.
Hi. I see many people trying to put applications over Steam, like making Facebook or Instagram or whatever, but...
Sound desk, could you please turn this microphone up? Gentleman over there, please. Please turn this microphone up.
Can you listen to me or no?
Keep talking.
No? Okay, so I see many people trying to make applications over Steam, so like Instagram or Facebook, so something which already exists, trying to put over. Do you think there will appear new applications that doesn't exist right now because we don't know it or we haven't thought about it? And if yes, how do you think we are going to get there? Does this make sense?
How do we get them to use the technology, the big players?
How are we going to get to need these applications? How are we going to reach something more than sharing image or moving money?
How are we going to beat them?
Yeah, it's something that we can make a plan to get to that, or it's something that we're going to find in the way. I don't know if it makes sense.
I think, yeah, we have a lot of work ahead of us. We have some roadblocks ahead of us in scalability and user experience that we need to get over. And once we get there, we as a platform offer things that no one else is offering. And you can see that if you look at, say, Steemit.com, and we ask, would all these people be here at SteemFest, or would we have, 400,000 accounts signed up onto Steam if there was no cryptocurrency involved? If the whole thing was just this Steemit.com website, would the user experience of Steemit have brought everyone to this place right now? I don't know. I think the cryptocurrency has had a lot to do with it, and nobody else has that yet. So what we need to do is, have a competitive user experience. And once we're there, once the blockchain enables that for applications, absolutely. The sky's the limit. This can be bigger than all those applications that you named.
Guys getting cranky if you don't respond.
Yes.
I was really intrigued by the project, the hard fork, and what they've done. Do you see much being done to make Steemit more of a crowdfunded? Is there much work being done to make it crowdfunding projects easier?
I think that so much can be done in terms of crowdfunding. With cryptocurrency right at all of our fingertips, it's very easy to send people money for products or projects in either philanthropic ways or as an investment. So what needs to be improved there is the interface. You need communities that are focusing on crowdfunding and encouraging and supporting that through better user experience tuned to those use cases. But that's coming, and we're seeing tons of developers show up and build these different things. So, if this is a niche and a need for the community, I believe it will be built. And if it's not being built by the community, then yeah, maybe we need to improve the incentives overall. But I think it will be.
Thank you.
I think we're coming towards the end, Roland. Is that correct? We'll take a couple more questions. Yes, in the middle at the back, there's a microphone that can make its way over here. Anyone? Are you feeling warm, Ned?
The fire is really... Well,
fire?
now that it just paused, I'm getting a little cool.
I shouldn't have mentioned that. Poor timing, sorry. Yes.
Hi, Detlef here. I have a very simple question, and I'd like to know what you believe where the Steam prize is end of the year, next year.
I have no idea. I have no idea. I can't answer that. I don't know. I think that overall, the long-term trend is that cryptocurrency is becoming big and will only become bigger. And Steam is a big part of that, and there are even more reasons that it will become this sort of global phenomenon for many, many more people. So, based on, the fundamentals, understanding how many people are going to be using these systems, you know, it could be very valuable, but it's impossible to say. It's impossible to say where it's going to go.
Okay, last question from me then. You've learned a lot in the last 2 years, from already having a fair bit of knowledge to now running a company, a currency and a platform. Is there anything that you now know about cryptocurrency that you wish you knew 2 years ago?
Yes. You know, if we look at the history of Steem has gone through tons of changes from where it started. When it began, some of you may have been around, but there were economic policies built into this currency that ultimately ended up being very detrimental to the system. And luckily, some of us on the team had the wherewithal to acknowledge that and made some proposals to the community to fix that. And so now things like the total emissions rate of new tokens is down to a reasonable rate that supports the growth of the community without harming it. So we learned that the assumption that the value of speculators is very important. You know, the system originally had a super high inflation rate that really spurned the speculator, and that was a mistake. And so now there's a reasonable under 10% annual total new emissions, and I think that that's a great thing. So there have been really sort of eye-opening moments for how to create tokens in a way that will lend themselves to strong consumer safety. Because ultimately, people who get into these systems are not digging into the code. They're not understanding every nuance of the economic proposition. So someone out there creating smart media tokens or creating a cryptocurrency would be wise to the idea that you know, they need to bake in economic policies that are safe for all the people who are going to play in that economy.
Well, I hope you have many more religious experiences to come. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Ned Scott.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. So when we do the autograph session?
Yeah, right over here, right after.
Bring your pictures of
Selfies
Ned.
with Ned tonight at the after party.